It was supposed to be just another ordinary evening. The kind of night where you brush off the dust of your long, exhausting week, put on a decent shirt, and convince yourself that maybe, just maybe, this blind date won't end in awkward silence and forced laughter. But as Daniel sat at the corner table of the softly lit cafe, his heart restless beneath his crisp white shirt, he didn't realize that tonight would unravel every layer of his past. The pain, the guilt, the love he thought he had buried years ago. That if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and the power of second chances, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Stories like this remind us how fragile and beautiful life truly is. The cafe smelled of roasted coffee and cinnamon pastries. A slow jazz tune played in the background, and rain tapped gently on the window beside him. Daniel checked his watch again, 7:02 p.m. He was early, as usual. Punctuality had become his shield against chaos ever since life had taken away everything he once thought was permanent. He took a slow breath and thought about how he'd even ended up here. His best friend, Mark, had practically forced him into this blind date. "You need to live again, man," Mark had said. "It's been years. Stop hiding behind work." Daniel had resisted, but the silence of his apartment, the kind that echoed every time his little daughter was asleep, had worn him down. So he agreed. One date. No expectations. Then the door opened, and she walked in. She wasn't striking in the movie star kind of way. No, there was something softer, something familiar. A gentle presence that pulled at a place deep inside him, like an echo from a dream he once had but couldn't remember. She looked around the cafe until her eyes landed on him. She smiled, small, polite, but knowing. She walked toward him, her brown hair falling loosely over her shoulders, rain droplets glistening like tiny diamonds. "Daniel?" she asked softly, her voice almost hesitant. "Yes," he said, standing to shake her hand. "And you must be Emily," she finished. Her handshake was warm, but there was something behind her smile, a sadness that didn't quite reach her eyes. They sat down, ordered coffee, and began with the usual pleasantries. "Where do you work? What do you like to do in your free time?" The kind of small talk that fills the silence but doesn't touch the soul. But the more Daniel listened, the more something felt off. Every time he looked at her, a strange unease stirred inside him. She knew things about him that he didn't remember mentioning. The way she said his name carried a weight, like a memory. When she laughed, soft and bittersweet, something inside him twisted. And then, just as their coffee arrived, she looked at him for a long, quiet moment and said, "You don't remember me, do you?" The words hung in the air like a blade. Daniel froze, confused. "I'm sorry," he said cautiously, trying to recall her face, her voice, anything. "Should I?" Emily looked down at her cup, her fingers trembling slightly. "It's okay," she whispered. "I didn't think you would." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the sound of rain. Daniel felt his chest tighten. "Please," he said softly. "Tell me." She took a deep breath, and her eyes glistened with tears she tried to hold back. 10 years ago, I was in a car accident," she said. "It was late. It was raining. My car spun out on the bridge. You were the one who pulled me out." His mind flashed, a memory, distant and blurred, of screeching tires, broken glass, and the faint smell of gasoline. A young woman trapped inside a burning car, crying for help. He remembered rushing in, not thinking twice. He remembered the blood, the smoke, the desperate scream. And then the ambulance, the flashing red lights. "Oh my God," he whispered, his voice cracking. "That was you." Emily nodded. "You saved my life, Daniel. The doctor said I wouldn't have made it if you hadn't pulled me out. You disappeared before I could even thank you." Daniel's throat tightened. He had never told anyone about that night, not even his late wife. He remembered the days after the accident, the sleepless nights, the nightmares. He had always wondered what happened to the woman he saved, but he never found out. He didn't even know her name. "I tried to find you," Emily continued, her voice trembling. "I wrote letters to the police, hospitals, but I never got a reply. Then, when my friend told me about this blind date, and I heard your name, I couldn't believe it. I had to see you." Daniel sat back, overwhelmed. He felt his heart pounding as a mix of emotions flooded him. Shock, gratitude, guilt. "Emily," he said, his voice shaking. "I didn't do anything special. Anyone would have." "No," she interrupted gently. "Not everyone would have risked their life for a stranger." Her words pierced something deep inside him. He thought about his wife, Rachel, how he had lost her 2 years later to an illness he couldn't fight, no matter how much he wanted to save her too. He had saved a stranger, but couldn't save the woman he loved most. The irony had haunted him for years. They sat in silence, both lost in the shadows of their pasts. The rain outside grew heavier, streaking down the windows like falling tears. Finally, Emily spoke again. "You look tired," she said softly. "Like someone who's been carrying too much for too long." Daniel chuckled weakly. "Single dad life," he said. "My little girl, Lily, she's 6. Smart, stubborn, just like her mom." His eyes softened, but there was pain there too. "Rachel passed away 3 years ago. Cancer." Emily's expression softened with empathy. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice almost breaking. He nodded, swallowing hard. "I stopped believing in fate after that. I stopped believing in anything, really." Emily looked at him, her gaze gentle but strong. "Maybe fate didn't give up on you. Maybe it just waited for the right moment." Something in those words hit him. For the first time in years, Daniel felt a flicker of warmth, a fragile hope stirring inside his chest. They talked for hours that night, about pain, healing, life, loss, and the strange ways the universe brings people together. By the time they stepped out into the rain, the cafe lights behind them dimming, Daniel felt lighter than he had in years. As they walked toward their cars, Emily stopped under a street lamp, the rain glimmering around her. "You know," she said, smiling through tears, "when I was in the hospital after the accident, I told myself that if I ever met you again, I'd tell you something." "What's that?" he asked, his heart beating fast. "That night changed me," she said. "I stopped taking life for granted. I started helping others, volunteering at shelters, hospitals. You didn't just save my life, you gave it meaning. And now, I want to do the same for you." Daniel felt a lump rise in his throat. For the first time in years, he didn't know what to say. All he could do was smile, a real, grateful smile. Days turned into weeks after that night. Daniel and Emily started meeting more often. Coffee turned into walks, walks turned into dinners, and dinners turned into laughter that filled the emptiness in both their hearts. Lily adored her too. She called her Missy. Emily helped with school projects, bedtime stories, and slowly became part of the family Daniel never thought he'd have again. But it wasn't just romance. It was redemption. 2 broken souls helping each other heal, one day at a time. Emily taught him to believe again, to live again, to love again. And every time he looked at her, he realized that maybe, just maybe, some encounters are not coincidences, they're destiny in disguise. Months later, on a quiet evening, Daniel took Emily back to that same cafe where it all began. The same rain, the same table, but this time, no sadness lingered in the air. He reached across the table, holding her hand. "You were right," he said softly. "Fate didn't give up on me." Emily smiled, her eyes glistening. "It never does, Daniel. It just waits for when you're ready to believe again." If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue bringing you more stories that remind us what it means to be human, to love, to lose, to heal, and to hope again.